So, we're going to talk about the differences in hiring executives versus lower level employees. Just there's a general rule that hiring executives and high level employees is different than hiring low level employees. This is because of a lot of reasons, but mainly it's because that uh, executives and founders and high level employees have many more demands than low level employees. Generally, the exchange of I give you my 40 hours a week and you give me my X amount of dollars per week is good enough for a lower level employee. Of course, these people want to move up, and of course, they want to provide a lot of good value to the company, but that is the main exchange. Whereas executives are probably looking for something more long term. They're looking to be a stronger part of the company. They're looking for a higher level of compensation and different types of compensation because they're used to that already, or they deserve it, or they think that they're going to be putting in many more than 40 hours a week, and they want some sort of stake in how the company works. And so, because of this, typically only executives and management receive formal employment contracts. And so, this is because it's super expensive to put together an employment contract. This is where your employment attorney typically steps in. And as we were saying in an earlier video, it's generally pretty expensive to hire an employment attorney. You're going to be paying anywhere from $300 to $500 an hour for this type of person. And so, and a lot of times it's redundant to the offer letter that you already have made up, because as we talked about in an earlier video, there's so many terms about how much you're paid and when you're paid and what the start date is, and all of those things are generally covered in a more informal offer letter, that it's not necessarily necessary to put together a formal employment contract. But when you do and you have an executive, these employment contracts contain the same terms as offer letters, but also provisions addressing all sorts of other things, including employment for a term of years. So one of the things about executive employees is that, unlike at-will employees, you probably have more to lose if they leave than they have to lose if you fire them. So this is an opposite incentive of a lower level employee who probably needs your money more than you need them to work at the job, because you can probably replace this person easily. And so for a founder or for a high level employee that you want to get, this person might want to have security in the fact that even if they mess up at their job initially, or even if they don't provide results initially, that they end up being in a position that they have a strong way of providing long-term results. So this is the same way that, for example, a professor at a university gets tenure. So they can teach the classes that they want in the way that they want, because at some point the university believes in them so much that they can do more controversial things with their research and the way that they teach students. So employment for a term of years is useful because if you want this executive to stick around for the first 5 years of the company to get it off the ground, or you want this person to stick it out until you end up flipping the company, if you're the type of person who wants to get in and get out within 2 to 8 years, so a really quick turnaround time. Investors are going to want the founders to be there. Investors are going to want the founders to be locked in. And you just operationally want these people to be there for a long time. So that's something that you're going to discuss in the employment agreement. Notice of termination. Again, these people want a certain level of security within what they're doing. And so generally, with at-will employees, you don't have to give notice of termination, but these people are going to be much more savvy and sophisticated and want to know in advance if they're going to be let go, or at least see the process of them being let go. And so think about it this way: if you have a founder, a co-founder, and they're an employee of the company, they're not going to want to be taken by surprise one day if you decide that they're not a part of the company anymore because you're the person who hires and fires people. Severance benefits. So typically executives are, well, not typically, but sometimes executives are hired who are not at will. And so typically the only way that you fire them is for cause. And so in an employment agreement, as we'll talk about in much detail later on, particularly when we go over an actual employment contract, you'll see that there are all sorts of specific reasons enumerated in an employment agreement that you can be terminated for, but otherwise you can't be terminated. And so all of those specific reasons are called cause. And so typically if an executive is terminated without cause, then this person gets extra benefits. And if this person is terminated with cause, they don't get any benefits, because if it was cause, then they screwed up, and if it was without cause, then you screwed up, and then, or you just didn't want this person there, and now you'll have to pay for it. Bonus compensation. So not all executive and management level employees get bonuses, but often, since you might be paying them less than they're worth at an hourly rate or for a salary, they'll want a bonus to show that, to make up that difference and to be encouraged to put in a lot of extra time and energy into making those sales or doing the type of thing that brings in the business more money, and as a result they can share in the profit of that. Profit sharing or equity grants. So equity is a huge conversation. We're probably going to talk about that much later, if at all, in this this discussion. But equity is a piece of the company. It's a percentage interest in the company. It's shares in the company. And so giving away equity is not just giving away a bonus based on, I don't know, a percentage of how much a widget was sold for, how much a piece of like something was sold for. It's actually giving away a part of the company such that this person is now an owner, and you're not supposed to give that away lightly, and you're not supposed to give that away without getting a lot in return. So equity grants are something that is typically strongly negotiated in this employment contract. Profit sharing is a bit less, it's less dangerous than giving away equity, because giving away profit, you're only giving away a percentage of whatever's made in the company, but you're not giving away ownership and potentially control over the company itself. Accelerated vesting provisions if there's a change in control. And so vesting is something that we'll talk about more when we talk about equity. Just to give you a short version of this, what happens when you give away equity, which is shares in the company, you don't give away all those shares at once. And so the idea is that, let's say someone is getting 100 shares in a company. You give them the shares over time. So let's say 33 shares in the first year, another 33 in the second year, and the final 34 in the last year. And so you'd give those things away over time to encourage the person to stay at the company. And so it's that carrot, it's that thing that allows someone to see that, hey, you will only get full ownership and control of the company if you play ball, and if you stick around, and if you make this company as successful as it can be. And so what happens each year, you get those 33 shares. That's called vesting. And so at the end of year one, your 33 shares would vest. And so that means that now you have potentially full ownership and control of those shares. And if you left at the end of year one, you could end up walking away with at least that 33, even if you didn't earn your entire 100. And so what happens when there's changes in control in the company, so a company might be purchased, or a company might be transferred to another set of founders or something like, another set of owners instead of the founders because it's sold, all sorts of reasons. Typically, executives have a situation where their shares can vest, and they can walk away, or they can reap the benefits of the change in control. But yeah, so a lot of people will negotiate these types of things based on the fact that the change in control, particularly at a small company with very few executives, is a really important event. And so oftentimes that'll be a big part of negotiation. So again, we're talking about a lot of very, very high level stuff. I think that we're going to get into the practical meat and potatoes of what executive employment contracts actually look like when we go over an entire executive employment contract point by point, and we talk about those things. And so you'll be able to see at that point how each provision works, and then figure out which applies to you and which doesn't apply to you in any given situation. Thank you.